Master your money, free your future. Welcome to Budget for Life. My name's Jeremy. I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm a financial advisor. And in this video, I just want to celebrate a couple things. Okay. I want to share that, or I want to celebrate that we officially crossed 2,000 subs on the channel. So, congratulations, you guys, for being a part of the Y2K sub club. I also want to celebrate that today is the last day of GameStop's Q3. And I'm going to show actually in this video how I know that is the case, how we can know that today is the last day, which might be surprising to you because you might think, wait a minute, I thought Q3 was through October 31st. Well, no, it's actually this year through November 1st. I'll show you how we know that. And also, primarily in this video, I want to talk about, in light of the fact that today is the last day of Q3, what is going to be the close price that GameStop chooses for its Bitcoin position, and then what's that going to do to the numbers for their quarter three. I'm excited to get into it. Thank you guys for being here. What's up, Scott? What's up, CD? Before I start diving into it, of course, appreciate any supers or any questions you have. You don't have to give any supers, okay? But as I'm presenting information, if you want to make sure that I see what you're saying, or if you want to skip to the front of the line, feel free to put a super on it. But also just want to say thank you to those who have joined as fans and as friends of the channel. And shout out Feathers. Congrats and thank you, newest friend of the channel. So if you want those perks, you can, of course, join. But glad to have you, Feathers. Thanks for joining. One of the perks is that I shout you out if you become a friend. So just doing my duty over here. In Q2, Bitcoin generated $28.6 million of income for GameStop. Okay, so not not a negligible amount of money for a company that just one quarter before had a total net income of $44 million, right? So it's important to understand their Bitcoin position. I want to dive into it for you here. So this is their 10Q that reported August 2nd of 2025. Now we know that they held 4,710 Bitcoin, that they paid in total $500 million, that the fair value of that was $528.6 million at the end of the quarter, which corresponds to a price of $112,229.30 per Bitcoin. What's interesting here is this is an unrealized gain. So GameStop didn't sell any of their Bitcoin, and yet, as we just saw, they reported an income from their Bitcoin. And you can see it here in their the statement of operations, the income statement. You can see that 28.6 gain on digital assets. Digital assets is what they call their Bitcoin. This is something I wanted to talk about. What's up, Kevin? Good afternoon. Something I wanted to talk about because other securities are not like this. If a company bought, if GameStop bought whatever, Alibaba, and Alibaba's up 100%, if they don't sell any of it, they don't have to recognize on the income statement any of those gains from that position. It's unrealized gain. So it impacts their balance sheet, right? The asset value will go up, but the income would be unaffected until they decide to close any portion of that position. With cryptocurrency, the SEC has ruled differently. Basically, they've said that if you're going to hold Bitcoin, you have to realize the full loss or gain. Basically, you have to report the full gain or loss from your Bitcoin position every quarter, regardless of whether it is a realized gain or an unrealized gain. Essentially, this is kind of interesting, not to get political, but the SEC has decided to treat Bitcoin how a lot of people are clamoring for the government to treat all other securities. if you want to talk about increasing taxation on the concentrated wealth of Americans, the conversation is starting to move towards, well, what about all those unrealized gains? If someone owns, 50% of a company that all of a sudden is worth billions of dollars, but they never sell the shares, like how is it fair that they don't have to pay any tax on any of that wealth that they've accumulated? Basically, the government's like, hey, any companies out there, if you want to amass an incredible amount of wealth through crypto, fine, we will let you hold cryptocurrency as a company, but we are going to tax you regardless of if you cash out of those gains or not. We're going to tax you on the gains. So that's one important thing to know as far as understanding the Bitcoin position is regardless of if it's sold or not, the difference in the close price from the start of the quarter or the end of last quarter and the close price at the end of Q3, aka today, is going to be recognized on their Q3 numbers. Now, how do we know that today is the day? And then how do we know what time they are going to pull from? Right? Is it going to be 110, 431, or is it going to be down here? Or is it going to be at 12 a.m. at the beginning of the day, to 11:59 at the end of the day? I'll show you how we know the time. And this actually took me, this was difficult to figure out. Okay, so if you appreciate it, drop a like. I appreciate you guys. What's up, John? Glad you're here, man. Glad you're here. There's also, I feel like there was one other channel update thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, it was related to the Y2K sub club, which is that for anyone that comes into the channel later on, you're like, man, I'm bummed. I'm not a Y2K sub club member. I am interested in, not right now, but at some point, basically, so like fans of the channel, they get these loyalty badges, right? Excuse me. And once there's, I don't know exactly when I'll do it, but maybe just let me know what y'all think about this idea. And maybe you don't care if you're not into the channel, then that's fine. But what I've thought is, you have the true Y2K sub club members, just like you have the true Spartan 300, right? The first 300 subs that ever existed on the channel, way before anyone knew about this channel. The second way that you could become an honorary, OG sub member is like through these kind of longer tenure fan whatever tiers. So basically, like what I want to do one day is like upload my own logos. So like the Y2K one, the logo will probably be like an N64 controller. And then maybe and so anyways, so then people could see like the icon next to your name of like, oh, maybe you relate to the game. Maybe you weren't here as a part of the first 2,000 subscribers, but you could become an honorary Y2K sub club member through fan membership in the channel, just a way to try to make the channel more fun. Okay, how do we know that today's the quarter end for Q3 for GameStop? So let's just look at their past several filings dating back to their 10K for the full year of 2023. They say for the fiscal year ended February 3rd. So when we talk about GameStop, hey, Bob, glad you're here and thank you for the encouragement. Sorry, I'm a little late to responding to your comment. We talk about the quarters as if it is, November, December, January is Q4, February, March, April, Q1, May, June, July, and then August, September, October. But the reality is GameStop does not actually close the quarters on those actual dates. It's sometime around that date, but it's actually, check this out, February 3rd, 2024 was the Saturday after the first Saturday after January 31st or February 1st, right? And again, if you go to the next quarter, ended on May 4th, 2024. Okay, that is the Saturday after April 30th or May 1st, whichever way you want to think about it. August 3rd, Saturday after. November 2nd, Saturday after. Now we're into 2025. They're 10K from this most recent year, February 1st of 2025, the first Saturday after January 31st. And then you've got Q1, period ended May 3rd, which is the Saturday after April 30th. And lastly, again, August 2nd, 2025, which is the Saturday after July 31st. So today, November 1st, is the Saturday after October 31st. And so today is the actual last day of Q3 for GameStop. So support the company. If you make a purchase today from GameStop, it will show up in their Q3 numbers. A little bonus day. Some of y'all might have thought yesterday was the last day. You got one more day. You got a bonus day. Okay. Now, as it relates to Bitcoin, one thing we won't know until they file is, did they decrease their position at all? Did they increase their position at all? And also, did they buy anything else this quarter, right? So we don't know until they file if they have increased their positions anywhere else. But the quarter started August 2nd. So if you wanted to be like, if you're hoping that GameStop deployed some more of their capital into Bitcoin, it's possible that they scooped up some more at around 109, 108, which would be similar to their original cost basis, right? Oh, yeah, 106 is their original cost basis. It never quite hit 106, 109 again in September. And then there you go. There's a 106 just 2 weeks ago, just about touched GameStop's cost basis for Bitcoin. If they did increase their position at any of those thresholds, then there would be potentially slightly a little bit more gain there. Is it plausible that GameStop deployed cash into any other market securities? Based on Ryan Cohen's most recent interview discussing how pretty much he's going to wait until the upside's very high, downside's very low, and most likely waiting for a market crash, I think it's unlikely that they would have bought any other securities in Q3. The one thing I've thought about is it possible that they bought any gold? Probably not. Like, is Ryan Cohen's risk aversion to a chart that looks like this high? Probably so. But when you listen to his justification for buying Bitcoin in the first place, it's really an inflation hedge. And if he had to choose between gold or Bitcoin, he was enough of a bull in Bitcoin to say that it's a superior, potentially a superior store of value than gold, a superior hedge than gold. So does that mean that he, is opposed to gold as a secondary store of value? It doesn't necessarily mean that. Again, is it possible that there's a 10 or a 5 or a 20% gain on a 100 or 200 or $300 million gold position? It's certainly possible. I don't think there's anything else really that he would have bought unless it was more Bitcoin. If he felt like he wanted to have a higher amount in Bitcoin, particularly in light of the Fed cutting rates 2 times during this Q3 period, of this 9.2, to have 500 million in Bitcoin and almost 9 billion in cash. Does he want to get that a little bit closer to even? Maybe. But as it relates to what we know, the impact that even him having accrued more during Q3 would have had is probably negligible. Like, if you were to take the weighted average price during Q3, it's probably right around this 110 number. Now, what's going to be the time that determines the price that they record for their Bitcoin. That's what I really wanted to know. And man, it took me a while because I'm like, man, where did GameStop come up with 112 229? Because Bitcoin, it doesn't ever close, right? It's a 24-hour market. And so people generally call the close 8 p.m. Eastern time. And at the close, they were at 112 526. The low that they recorded at any point during the day was actually like 1 a.m. that morning, which is 112 005. I took like the average of those. I took obviously the high for the day. Nothing could get me that close to this 112 229 number. And I was really curious, like what, how, where, So I'm like asking ChatGPT, like, what time of day did Bitcoin on August 2nd trade at this price? And they're like, well, I can't find it, but maybe I could extract a minute by minute log somewhere to find it. I said, yeah, that's great. And then they're like, okay, now put this code into Python and then you'll be able to find it. And I'm like, chat, I can't do that. Like I tried to do it and it was not working good for me. And so again, they keep trying to help. And I'm like, look, can you do this? And this is when ChatGPT is like, no, I can't. And by the way, also you run out of data if you want me to try to scan for this type of stuff. So now I'm out $22 because I paid for ChatGPT Pro because I'm trying to find out for myself and for you guys, honestly, like how can we know with any higher level of accuracy what their Bitcoin price is going to be? Not just for this quarter, but for any quarters moving forward, right? So now I'm out $22. Not a huge deal. I'm telling ChatGPT, like, I can't do it. Like, you have to help me, you know? And again, they're telling me more of these code things. And just, I wish I could show you like my email because like every hour they were like telling me, sorry, Python's unavailable, Python's unavailable, Python's unavailable. King of number one asks, why are you using Robinhood? I like the way their charts look. I don't have any money there, but I like the way their charts look. So I'm not a Robinhood believer. I was pretty soul crushed when they turned off the buy button because um, their mantra literally is to democratize finance. And I was and once the true colors came out in 2021, I'm like, oh, y'all aren't democratizing finance. You're stealing from the poor and giving to the rich, like this payment for order flow is scammed against us. So I still feel fine using their charts because I'm literally costing them money. They're not making any money off of me. They are buying server space so that I can benefit from their UI. And who knows, maybe one day someone else will buy Robinhood and they will have a different ownership. But to each their own. If I was a trader, I would use TradingView, but I'm not. Eventually, I get some ability of ChatGPT to scan this file to find the exact minute, and they scan it. Oh yeah, sorry, can't scan it. They keep going. Where is it? Where is it? Eventually, we end up with the top 5 closest minutes to 112 229.30, which is the price that GameStop recorded, right? And so you have Chicago time, 3 p.m. This price was 1229 or 112 229.42. So at 3 p.m. Central Time, they were very close, as with 2:59 p.m. 2:59 and 3 p.m. they're sitting at 112, 229, 42 cents. And then the next minute, 301, they finish at 112, 228, 45. So at like when the clock strikes 3, sometime between like sometime in the next 59 seconds, someone at Bitcoin or sorry, someone at GameStop is picking a number, right? It's at some point during that minute, 3 p.m. to 3 p.m. and 59 seconds, GameStop is recording the Bitcoin price. At least that's what they did this past quarter. Because again, they started the minute above 12.29, like 12 cents above, and then they finished the minute or finished the next minute, whatever, closest price. That next minute they were at 112, 228, 45, so about $1 under. So pretty quickly after we hit 3 p.m., aka in 13 minutes. So you might be wondering, why am I live streaming? Even though when I live stream, my audio cuts out and it's not as good of quality or whatever. Not that I'm a great quality producer of content anyways. I'm here for the analysis and for the information. Hopefully you are too. Because I want to be recording the intra minute prices, because they're hard to resurface, at least hard for someone like me to resurface like prices within a single minute of time. So we will have the full recorded range by which GameStop, if they do it the same way they did last quarter, we'll have the full recorded range of what their Bitcoin close price might be. And now let's talk about what will that number do for GameStop's Q3 earnings. Okay. Let's see if right now they're at 110. Let's just say they end at 110, 230. Okay. 110, 230 times 4,710 Bitcoin is going to give them a close price of 519. Value at end of Q3. The difference between the two, 528.6 minus B142 is a $9 million loss. A $9 million loss that you're going to see in their interest income. Now, it's not going to be a total loss because their cash will have generated much more than $9 million. But I'm excited to see where it closes, because if it pushes up a little bit to finish this last 10 minutes, or if it crashes down, literally GameStop's required to record when that, like what that loss is going to be, which is going to be a slight headwind currently on their Q3 numbers, particularly compared to Q2, because the interest that they gain in Q2, they will probably have a little bit more interest income than that in Q3. Obviously, you had some rate cuts, but they also had more cash that they're working with, but around a similar amount, 80 million in interest income. But you take 10 million off of that, and now you're at a 70 million interest income compared to a 110 million, right? Yeah. You're going from a plus 30 to a minus 10. So that's a $40 million swing quarter over quarter on their net income number. Potentially. So we'll see in 10 minutes what it closes out at. We'd love to hear y'all's thoughts. You think they bought any more to average down? If they did buy more, I think it's unlikely that they would have bought only, with this 500 million invested. I don't know. I'd be a little surprised if they bought 50 or $100 million more of Bitcoin, particularly when the amount that they raised. Maybe I'll just show you all this filing. They've done 2 convertible bonds, and the second convertible bond, they do not mention Bitcoin at all. They mention that this would be used for, of course, whatever they want, including making investments and potential acquisitions. Okay. In their previous convertible, they mention Bitcoin. So right here, where is it? GameStop expects to use the net proceeds from the offering, of course, for whatever they want, including the acquisition of Bitcoin. So do anything they want with all of the 9.2 billion that they have, but they've told you specifically this 1.5 billion that they raised, right? 1.48. They've told you that they've kind of earmarked it for Bitcoin. And then they told you that this that they raised, or 2.7, they've told you is investments and acquisitions. So is it possible that GameStop has deployed any of this investment money or acquisition money during Q3? Of course, it's possible. I don't think it's very likely based on Cohen's risk aversion, particularly in light of the current market value, just in the aggregate. Is it possible that GameStop decided to deploy some more of this 1.5, right? Hypothetically, there's still $1 billion in cash that GameStop has earmarked for Bitcoin. If they started out with a $500 million deployment, which is what they did first, their first chunk of Bitcoin, is it possible that they dumped the rest of the billion this quarter? I think that's not very likely. But if you have $1 billion in cash that's earmarked for Bitcoin, and if the purpose you raised, and if the amount that you initially put into Bitcoin was 500, I think it's much more likely that if they bought any more, it was at least $250 million worth, if not another 500 million, if they bought any more. I'm not saying they did buy any more, but every quarter that goes on, what do we have? We have another quarter of historical, performance of Bitcoin, right? Where it's kind of stabilizing, hypothetically. Now, this might not look attractive to Cohen at all. What are the odds that they bought more? I'd put it probably at like 25%. I think 75% they just stuck with the 500 million that they had already put in, and maybe they're waiting for a more severe dip to potentially buy in some more. But I'd say 25% chance that they went ahead and said, okay, go ahead and put another 250 or 500 in, not just because the price has been relatively stable. Whereas if this price was shooting up, I think it's less likely that they would have bought any more. But the other reason why it's, I think, a 25% chance they bought more is because you have power packs in this quarter. And so when you talk about the net income, that is operating income and interest income put together. And their operating income is on a $400 million improvement quarter over quarter. A $400 million improvement is a lot of operating income, no matter what type of margins you assign to their power packs. That additional operating income, which you then expect to continue to happen in Q4 and Q1, like this growth of the retail business could give some level of comfort, some level of support for Ryan Cohen's risk tolerance as it relates to the deployment of capital. Making sense? Bob says 100% they did not buy more. They would have released a filing if they did buy more. That's what Bob says. They did announce this purchase of Bitcoin in 528. That said, GameStop announced this purchase not because they had to. This was not an SEC requirement filing. They released this at like 8 a.m. the morning that Ryan Cohen was interviewed by the Bitcoin conference. So Ryan Cohen, GameStop knew that Ryan Cohen was going to disclose, was going to say to the Bitcoin conference people, hey, we own Bitcoin. We bought this much Bitcoin. And so because of that, GameStop went ahead and got ahead of that and announced it. Look at May 28th. Let's check it out. May 28th, the price of Bitcoin was, it closed at 107,820. You know, so it's, in the day before they were at 109. I'm not sure if at any point during this day or the day before or the day before or the day before, like it seems like maybe they did buy about 10 days before that. So you could say that it's just a coincidence that Ryan Cohen was speaking that day and that it's just that they decided to wait 10 days or so to announce it. Or you could say that they would not have announced it unless Ryan Cohen decided to do that interview, and that the way that they would announce it in general would be through their 10Ks and 10Qs. Like this is where we learn the actions that GameStop takes. And if they invest in a company and become a 10% holder of the company, then they have to file, right? They have to do a 13F or D or whatever it is, right, to disclose it publicly. But Bitcoin's not a company, it's a treasury asset. Well, GameStop doesn't have to say if they move their money from a 6-month T-bill to a 12-month T-bill. They don't communicate a filing about that. And Bitcoin's treated the same way from the SEC and from GameStop. They consider it a treasury asset, a currency asset, not a security. And so again, I don't believe that if GameStop bought more, they would have announced that they bought more. I believe that the reason they announced they bought the portion that they bought was because Ryan Cohen was communicating in the conference later that day that they had bought Bitcoin. So that said, if they bought more, I think 250 to 500 million. If Ryan Cohen timed that perfectly, then you're looking at something like a 10. Let's just say reasonably perfectly, like on one of these dips. Let's just say he got a 109 average on another purchase. Again, I'm saying this is 25% chance. But the 109, what's the, if I take 500 million divided by 109,000, that's another 4587 in Bitcoin. And then you hold, what is that, 4710 plus 4587. You own 927 Bitcoin at a total of $1 billion invested. So 1 billion divided by the new quantity would give you a new average cost basis of 107. But that takes the cost basis here, which is really incorrect, because again, the SEC requires you to basically update your cost basis every quarter. So for all intents and purposes, half of GameStop's cost basis is that 112 number. And what we're saying is they could have it doubled down and now have half at the 109 number. And so it really would be 500 million plus 528, which would make this 1,028.6, right? I just messed that up big time. Because this should be, that'd be 200 million. Should be a 0 there and not there. Okay, great. If they doubled down at an average of 109K per Bitcoin, they would have a new average cost basis of 110. And sure enough, there you go. I missed it during the 3 p.m., but I'm glad I'm recording. Did any of y'all record the numbers at 3 p.m.? 3 p.m. Well, this isn't going to tell me. Somewhere in that range of 10 to 60. So anyways, probably this was based on 10 to 30. Okay, so if we were really at 10 to 60, we just saved a little bit of money. We just saved almost $1 million in that little close there. That's why we stream. That's why we stream, guys. So probably you're looking at about a $9.3 million loss. If they deployed another 500 million at 109, then you're looking at $400 difference times 9,000 Bitcoin, which gives you a maybe more like a $3 or $4 million loss. Either way, it's still a loss. And either way, that's still a swing from a $28 million gain in Q3. So thankfully, really strong operating income on the horizon. And obviously also anyone that is bullish on Bitcoin, even the biggest Bitcoin bull, would not argue that every quarter is going to be evenly up the exact same percentage. You're dealing with a very volatile asset, and all that you want to really see is on the aggregate, the demand for alternative stores of value beyond fiat currency continue to grow, which all the variables that you're seeing this quarter continue to point towards that, right? All the inflation risks and trust risks with fiat currency continue to manifest. That storyline is continuing to play out. And so the likelihood that crypto continues to grow market share in the big picture is still as put together as ever. But of course, in a perfect world, you would love everything to just be a straight line, and not have to deal with volatility. Net income quarter over quarter, we'll project in a future video, but it's still going to be a growth in total net income, even with a close to 40 million, more like a $35 million swing in the negative from Bitcoin, right? From a 28.6 gain to about maybe a $9 million loss. Q4 could all come together. It could all come together. Excited to hear what y'all think. Thanks for being here. I'm going to wrap this one up soon unless anyone has any questions. But happy end of Q3, everyone. And again, congrats anyone that's a part of the Y2K sub club. Congrats anyone for educating yourself, for understanding this company on the inside, in depth. Wall Street's not covering this stock anymore, guys. There's no true analysts. There's no full-time analysts covering these numbers. So, hey, it's an honor to get to try to fill in the gaps for you guys. Super, super excited. In a coming video, last thing I want to say, I want to talk about the asset management business a little bit more. Got some great comments in some of my videos from some of you guys that I want to flush out and really meditate on with you guys and kind of show you a couple angles that I hadn't yet communicated about, that I hadn't thought about. One of them being basically the angle of, what if the lenders of the convertibles are indeed very bearish on GameStop, or like, what are the odds that they make more money shorting the stock and then redeeming for cash in their early redemption window, rather than being a long-term believer in the upside and wanting to convert in the 5 and 7 year windows into stock. I'm excited to kind of flush out that picture with you guys, as well as talk about dilution. So I've communicated these share prices based on their current share count, but obviously there are convertible bonds that will dilute the float. There are warrants that in all likelihood will dilute the float, either by October of this next year or later than that if GameStop delays them. So I want to talk about how to think about GameStop's share price in light of the coming dilutions as well. Excited to get into all of that with you guys. Fred C says decades and centuries, but it won't take more than another year of this profit for things to turn around and reflect in the price. I agree. I think we are finally in the window of Wombo. I think we're finally in the period of destiny for this company, finally breaking out at the seams. Really, really excited to see it with you guys. All right, that's all I got for y'all on this one. Thanks for being here. 6 of you guys on a Saturday afternoon. You could be watching college football. You're learning about how to model GameStop's Bitcoin income or loss quarter over quarter. Hope you learned something. Thanks, Marcelo. 2K subscribers. Congrats to everyone. Congrats to GameStop. Let's see it continue. I will see y'all in the next one.